Hey everyone, it's Michael Zapersky here, and today I am with Mike Kitko. Mike, welcome.
Thanks, Michael. It's great to be here. I'm excited to show up.
Yeah, good stuff. What you are here, right? Showing up is the first, I guess, step towards success, right? You got to be present, and we're both present, so we're I guess having a good start. Mike, your background, you've been managing high performing teams your whole career, right? You've got a strong background in sales, marketing, operations, and leadership. You now work as a coach, and from looking at your client list, you coach leaders who are often, in many cases, business owners. They describe in terms of your testimonials, many of them describe kind of the work with you in terms of life changing. And your title that I've kind of seen that you've labeled yourself as a self
Mhm.
mastery coach. That's a really interesting title or kind of way to describe what you do. So just tell us a little bit more about what does that actually mean to you, and what kind of work are you doing with people?
Yeah, so I do a variety of coaching and consulting, right, in that space. But prime example of what I would do is I'm in a corporate boardroom. I'm working with a team of executives to help them narrow in on a strategy, get really clear about what they're trying to achieve strategically, 3 to 5 years, understand the tactics and what they're going to need to do day to day. But as well, I'm also, I'm peppering them about their physical, their mental, their emotional health, about their relationship with their spouse, about their
Mm,
relationship with their children, about how they're handling themselves financially. And it's really understanding about how the human being is going to create the results that we're looking at on the board, right? Because you can't separate them. We try hard as
mhm.
executives. We try to leave home at home, and we try to go to the office and live this separate life. But really, the worlds merge. So as much as I'll sit in an office, in a room, and hold them accountable and help them hold themselves accountable for business results, I'm also making sure they're showing up at a healthy place physically, mentally, and emotionally well, because it's going to show up in the results whether they want to accept that and embrace that or not.
And so a lot of people might be wondering, isn't that a dangerous line to cross? Like, if what if you say the wrong thing to someone and you're bringing up family stuff and they don't want you, they're not looking for counseling or therapy. They're looking for help to grow the company. What have you found? Because I've also seen this right over the years working with clients that oftentimes as a consultant, you actually end up being a bit of, call it a, you could say a therapist, but it's almost, you get into a lot of conversations that have nothing to do with business, and just being able
Sure.
to listen to your client is ultimately what helps them, or it's one of the factors that helps them to feel comfortable around you and see you as a trusted advisor. But for someone listening to what you just shared and going, well, yeah, but that's not why they hired you. Like, how do you even bring that up? What's been your experience in kind of making that transition or being able to cover both areas?
Yeah. So every commitment, right? How you enter a commitment is ultimately how you show up in a commitment. So I wouldn't walk into a consultation agreement and say, hey, we're just going to focus on the numbers. That's not what I'm about. So
Hmm.
as a powerful consultant, as a powerful coach, we need to know what we stand for, and then we need to make sure everyone understands what they're getting, really what they're getting, like
Yeah.
authentically, not trick them, not back them into something, not, hold up a mirage
Hmm.
and then surprise them. It's help them understand exactly the value that they're going to get from you. So, one of the words in a prospect call, or when I'm in front of a prospect, or not selling, right? I just try to serve, and from that service, maybe they want more. I say, listen, we're going to create like extraordinary results, because we're going to get really, really clear about what we want to achieve in the business. We're going to get really, really clear about what we want to achieve with the culture, but I'm not going to let you lose yourself. So
Hmm.
I'm not going to separate those two. And if you want me, if you just want a business coach, I can go and find you one of those. I know a lot of them that are great, but that's not how I want to show up, because
Yeah.
it comes down to, for the consultant or the coach, it comes down to, what do you want to do with your clients? Because when you connect with that, that's when you're going to be energized. That's when your passion is going to be overflowing. And that passion not only sells, but that passion creates extraordinary results.
Yeah,
So,
I think one thing you're hitting on there, Mike, that's so important is the kind of the setting of expectations, right? So often people get into situations, whether it's around scope creep or just, just different issues in a project or an engagement with a client. And almost always it's because there hasn't been clear communication between the consultant and the client, right? It's kind of been dodging things or hoping that they don't come up, or just didn't address them because for fear of that the client may say no. What gives you like the confidence to say to a client, you know what, if you just want a business coach, or business consultant or whatever, like I'll find you someone else? Because to some people, right, they know, or they'd like to do that. They know that would actually be better for them to be clear about the expectations of what they do and what they don't do and what their sweet spot is and their power and all that. But they're not saying that because they don't want to lose the business. They don't want to lose the opportunity. What would you say to someone who has ever felt that way before?
Yeah, it's a scarcity mindset, right? Scarcity mindset, scarcity heart set. It's, what are you there for? Are you there because you feel like there's not enough to go around, or are you there to serve and support and make sure that you're connecting the most powerfully as you possibly can with that client, with that prospect, convert the client, and show up with everything that you have for them? Or are you just doing it for yourself? Because if you're not showing up authentically and powerfully, like with all your enthusiasm and all your passion, then you're really underserving them. And that's going to show up in your results. It's going to show up in the expansion of your business, because you become radically referable when you show up 100% as you. So if I could tell a story real quick.
Sure.
I had a client one time. So I had a private client. I worked with him on a private basis, and he had some challenges in his life. And after we were finished working through those private challenges, I said, what's next? Do you want to keep going? And he said, absolutely. I want, at that point, it was life-changing for him. So he said, I want to keep going. I said, what's next? He said, well, I need you to come in to my conference room with my other two partners. And we've got some alignment issues. We put together this agreement that was loosely based, but we're not on the same page. Can you come in? So, by the way, I'm a former Marine. I'm a Marine veteran, by the way. So let me get that out there. So that's going to show up in the story. But when I walked in, I started introducing myself. Now my client's sitting on my right, his business partner's across the table. And he, I started introducing myself. My name is Mike Kitko. I'm an executive coach. I'm a speaker. I'm an author. And probably within the first 30 seconds of introducing myself, one of his partners says, what makes you credible to be here, and why should I listen to you? And I said, brother, what's your name? And he told me his name. I said, you didn't even allow me the respect and the dignity to introduce myself without undercutting me, without disrespecting me, and without challenging me. And I was going to get to your answers, the questions that you just asked. I was actually going to answer that within my introduction, but you didn't even give me the courtesy to finish my introduction. Now, here's what I know. My client told me you guys have a problem. I know you have a problem, and I know how to fix it. But here's what I also know. You don't know how to fix it. You got two choices. Either you could raise your level of respect and allow me to help you because I'm not being paid to be here, or you can keep flapping your lips and disrespect me, and I can walk out and leave you with your problem that you can't resolve. What choice are you going to make? At the end of that session, that's the guy that invited me back the next month. Now, it's about showing up authentically and showing up as yourself, because if you're lying to them, if you're not showing up as you, you're underserving them and you're just selling them a bill of goods. They don't know what they're getting.
Where does that come from? Because I sense that there's going to be people listening to this or watching this right now going, I would love to be able to do that, but there's no, I can't get it up from my stomach. That just means that my stomach is turning when I hear you say that, Mike. So where, did you read certain books? Did you attend certain trainings? Is this from being in the military, growing up in a certain type of environment? Where does that level of, again, confidence and, showing up in that way and being so straight and direct, why are you able to do that?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it has to do with my Marine Corps background, and I was a leader in the Marine Corps. So you have to show up, and I have people's lives right in my responsibility. Yeah. So it wasn't about telling people what they wanted to hear. It's about making sure they understand what they need to hear and presenting that to them. But I kind of shrank from that. I was an executive leader in corporate America for 16 or so years. And I kind of shrank from that. I lost it. I kind of lost myself in those roles where I wrote a book called The Imposter in Charge, where I started showing up as an imposter because who I wanted to be wasn't who I presented, right? Or who I wasn't who I presented. And I kept shrinking from those things, always out of a sense of self-doubt and fear. And after my whole corporate career collapsed because I was so scared to be myself, I rebuilt my life. And that's when I stepped into my consulting and my coaching business. And I vowed at that point to never be anybody but my true authentic self. So so some will, some won't, someone's waiting, right? Who's next?
Hey,
So,
Mike, you talk about on your website something that, you're very open and vulnerable about some challenges and tough times that you've had in the past. You mentioned at one point you were suicidal, you were an alcoholic, you're over 300 pounds. That's tough to get out there. I mean, I would imagine that just putting that out and being so transparent with it, a lot of people wouldn't do that because they think that they're a professional, quote unquote, a professional. Professionals don't, they only should show strength and not weakness. Yet what I've seen in my experiences and talking with others is that the more vulnerable and open that you are, just the more that you attract the right kinds of people and just like good things happen. Can you share a little bit more of, first of all, what you were going through at that time so that people can maybe kind of resonate and understand where it's coming from? And then I'd like to just, hear your thoughts of why you decided to share that and what's kind of happened as a result. So it's a bit of a 3-part question. I'll guide you through it there, but let's just start with the first, like what was going on at that time for you?
Yeah. So I'll do the best I can. Alcoholic, 300 pounds, suicidal, completely lost myself in my corporate career, in my marriage. My wife was in chemical addiction. My wife and kids were being abused because inside I was in so much turmoil and so much distress. I was abusing myself on a daily basis. And a lot of that stems back to my childhood, right? There was some molestation, there was some physical, mental, and emotional abuse there as well. But I was running from that my whole life, and it's going to catch up to you, right? It does catch up to you. And I tried to avoid it. I tried to outrun it. It didn't happen. I lost two executive positions in about 20 months. At that point, I knew there was a president of a company that I worked for, and he says, hey, if you don't get fired once when you're an executive, then you're not really an executive. You're not a professional. So when it happened once, I was like, there you go. I got my check in the box. When it happened the second time, I was like, something's wrong. And I don't know what it is. So at that point, that second time I was like unhireable, right? I was unemployable. I mean, my 20 months, two terminations. So no one would have me. And I was forced to figure out, what do I want to do? Who do I want to be for the rest of my life? And I did 1,000 things a day in corporate America, but there's only 2 things that I ever loved. And one was developing people and developing teams. Those are the only 2 things I love doing. I did them with genius. And I resolved at that point that I've already done it the way I thought it was supposed to be, where you make it hard, you sacrifice yourself, you sacrifice everything for income. And at that point, since I had nothing left, I had no income, I had no family, we were getting ready to, we were on the brink of divorce and everything collapsing. I just kind of vowed to live soul out from the rest of my life, right? And just be me. And that's
where did that come from? If I could just go a little deeper into that, because I don't know what, maybe there's someone that's going through something similar right now, listening or watching this, and what was that turning point for you, or what kind of got you to that place where you decide, what, I need to make this change and I'm going to go full out?
Yeah, when you literally have a loaded gun in your hands, getting ready to put the barrel in your mouth, it's life changing. So you have 2 decisions to make, right? Because at that point, I'm getting emotional as I say this. At that point, when you're at that point, it's a fork in the road. Am I going to do this, right? And all these problems will go away. Or if I'm not, if I don't have the courage, luckily I didn't have the courage, right? But if I don't have the courage to do this, then I'm basically acknowledging that everything that I've ever learned about life is all garbage. And I've got to wipe the slate clean and refigure this whole thing out, because I am not going back to the life that got me here. And it's at that point, Michael, that I decided that I like to say, I figured out that I had nothing figured out. And I wiped all of it clean to the point of, I hired a coach. I started working on, my addiction. I started working on my physical state. I started working on my mental and emotional issues from that stem from trauma. 3 or 4 months later, my wife started to attack me because I was making all these changes, and we were both in a beautiful addiction together, right? And she didn't like the fact that I was resolving my addiction, and she saw me moving through, and she started attacking. So I filed for divorce from her. And after I filed for divorce, the next morning she came down and said, all right, I'm in. How do we make this work? Let's do it. And I'm getting emotional. That's when we started putting our marriage back together and our health back together. And that's when we stopped abusing each other and our children. And that's when our life really started. It was like just a complete, you look at our life now, we're business partners. It looks nothing like it did 4 years ago when we were going through this.
Yeah.
So life looks completely different, right? So that was a whole life shift. And at that point, I get to decide who I want to be for the rest of my life. And what didn't work for me was doing things everybody else's way through things that I were taught. My father taught me making money was hard. Man's going to take money, try to take everything away from you. That's all those things. My dad loved me dearly, but he taught me a lot of painful lessons, right? That the world was dangerous. And I realized that was all garbage, that I had made it so. And I wiped the slate clean, started rebuilding back from authenticity, because lying and covering up all the pain I was in, it never got me anywhere. So, a few months later, after I was, about a year later, I started working through all this. I was in front of a group of about 250 entrepreneurs, and I said, my name's Mike Kitko. You don't know me, but for 20 plus years, I physically, mentally, and emotionally abused my wife and kids on just about a daily basis, right? So there's my garbage. So I just...
And why, first, Mike, I want to just thank you for being so open here and sharing this.
Yeah.
I think it means a lot to me, and I think it means a lot to everyone that's tuning in right now. Why did you share this? Why not bury it and move past? And why for you was it so important to tell your story, even though that story is a tough one and a really personal one?
Because everyone's suffering right now. Everyone's suffering in their own way. The difference is most people are walking around pretending that they're not and hiding it from other people. And that's making them feel even more broken than they actually are. And when I stand up in front of an audience and I express my garbage, it makes everyone else feel normal in their skin. It makes everyone else feel normal in their soul. Now, as a coach, that's a great thing, because people know when I'm coaching them that I have experience, right? I'm not just teaching textbook shit. Pardon me, but I'm not just teaching from a textbook. I'm teaching from real life experience, and I'm helping you understand what I've already learned so you can avoid the same pitfalls and the same bounce that I experienced. As a consultant and as a coach, it's important that everyone understand what they're getting, and it's important that they know that they're going to get this authentic piece, and that when they have an issue, when they have a challenge, they're not broken because of it, but we all have it. We're all experiencing it, and they're not different. They're not broken because they're going through some kind of a challenge.
So when you made this shift, and you said, you stepped out from it, you're working on making these improvements, things are now starting to come together, you're kind of seeing, the light at the end of the tunnel, you decide to launch your business, you get in front of 250 entrepreneurs. Just take us back to I think you're about 4 years or so in now, right, in terms of building your coaching consulting business. At the early stages, how did you go about actually getting clients? What was the first thing that you did once you kind of ventured out into this, zone of Mike Kitko coaching consulting? How did you go about winning those first few deals?
So just to clear it up, so I've been on this journey of life reinvention, let's call it, for about 4 years, about 3.5 or so, 4 years. I've been in business, let's say, for about 2.5.
Got it. Okay.
So I was taught this really, really cool technique to get my business started. and he's a local guy. His name's Josh. He's awesome, and I'll call him my sales coach. He won't take credit for that, but he taught me this really cool thing, right? So let's say you and I are, this is when I was first starting out. This tactic doesn't work now, but not for me. But maybe it will if someone's just starting out their business. So if we're sitting across from the table and you express interest in working with me and you say, Mike, I want to work with you. What's it like? The question that got me started was, well, what are you looking to invest in yourself? How much are you looking to invest in yourself? And when they give you a number, now you can design a package or you can design something around.
And why do you say that would not work for you now?
Because I have programs and I have packages, and it's more, hey, I've got options, but here's what your options look like. Pick one that works best.
And how are you getting in front of someone? So for someone like really early stage who maybe doesn't have a pipeline yet, isn't having as many conversations as they would like, what were you doing to actually get in front of a potential ideal client?
Networking, right? Finding local networking groups, just going and meeting people, talking to people. I joined a local co-working community, and I would show up at the co-working meetings and they got to know me. They started referring people to me. I didn't do a whole lot of referrals back then, but it was a matter of sitting down, having one-on-ones and just connecting and serving powerfully from the chute. Like, even back then, you couldn't tell if, when I'm sitting with someone and I'm sitting there sipping on coffee, you couldn't tell if they were a family member. You couldn't tell if they were a friend. You couldn't tell if they were a prospect. You couldn't tell if they were a client. They all look the same. Because coaching is not, and consulting is not something I do for work. It's literally how I show up in life, because I've turned my passion into my business. There's no separation. There's no distinction. Tuesday looks like Saturday and Saturday looks like Christmas Day. There's no difference. It's who I am. So my kid asked me a question and I'm going to start coaching. They hate that, but I'm going to start coaching. It's because I have this passion that's trying to get out, trying to help everyone understand that life doesn't have to be as hard as you're making it to be.
So that was the early stages, right? You're going to networking events, you're having conversations, you're trying to add as much value as you can in terms of serving and providing coaching. It sounds like maybe there's even were you doing a bit of free coaching kind of initially, like a bit of a session with people, kind of getting into, just deeper conversations so they could experience what it was like to work with you? Were you doing, I just got a bit of sense of that, maybe that bit of that was happening or no?
Yeah, I would talk to anybody, any place, anytime, in grocery store lines, at the library, at the co-working shop, sitting down. I got up from my table. I heard this guy telling this really cool story at a coffee shop one time. And I just got up from my table after when I was getting ready to leave. And I said, his name's Sean. And I said, hey, Sean, I just heard your story, man, and I would love to sit down and just hear more. Would it be okay if I just picked your brain one time? And he said, oh, I would love that. So I sat down with Sean, and we arranged a meeting, and I sat down with Sean, and for 58 minutes of the time we were together, he just talked. He just talked. And every time he would ask me something about me, I'd say, no, I talk about myself all day long. I want to hear more about you. I'm interested in your story. And he kept talking and talking and talking. At the end of the conversation, I probably spoke for 2 minutes, and that was including me saying, no, I speak too much about myself. He says, hey, this has been awesome. We need to do this again. And I was with that guy for a year. So be interested, not interesting, right?
And how did you transition that conversation from him saying, hey, we should do this again, to, sure, I'd be happy to, but that's how I get paid, right? How did you transition to a client engagement?
Yeah, so I think there's a time and a place for that, and you have to use your intuition. In this case, I came back, the next time, and we spoke, and then he started literally asking me what I did, and I started expressing what I did, and we started talking about what it would look like to actually work together.
Got it. Okay.
There's a time and a place for everything, and it doesn't mean you always need to be out for the dollar.
Yep.
Planting seeds and watering them will create all the dollars you need.
Yeah, that's such an important lesson. We talk quite a bit about that, in different podcast episodes and with guests, and just even with our coaching clients in the community. Planting seeds is so critical, right? People are often looking and judging their success based on what they're doing right now. But what they don't recognize is what you did 3 to 6 months ago is creating what you're seeing right now. And so you got to plant seeds now. You got to keep planting them every single day. It doesn't matter if your business is going fantastically well or it's, every day is dreadful. You need to plant those seeds because that's what's going to create the future for you.
Every single conversation that you have is a seed.
Yeah. Good. So Mike, let me ask you, what are you doing today? Like now, fast forward 2.5 years of working the business, building the business. What does your marketing look like today? How are you going about, building your business, attracting new clients?
Yeah.
Fill us in on that.
So I jump on cool podcasts, right? I've launched a book, a little bit of self-promotion, but The Imposter in Charge is my book. It was just published in October. So that is marketing in and of itself. I've hired an operations manager who's constantly looking for speaking engagements, constantly looking for podcasts. You've got to know your zone of genius, and mine is speaking. So it's really about connecting with that inner genius that you have inside. And what I like to tell my team, because I've got a team of 4, is when I'm talking, we're making money. So their job is to get me in front of people and talk. Now I go out and do my own networking and meet people, and
right.
but when we get in front of people, when we get in front of a crowd, it creates all the business that we can handle.
So breakdown. You have kind of team of 4 right now. What are the roles of those people?
Yeah, so I have a developer who's constantly working on systems, developing systems that allow us to create new offerings, to be able, all the behind the scenes, the infrastructure.
So it's like this, you're talking about kind of like a web developer, so stuff on your website and things of that nature, or
just systems in general, right? In terms of client intake, in terms of taking payments, feedback systems, those types of.
And are they full time or they're kind of a part-time contractor?
Yeah, part-time contractor.
Got you. Cool.
So,
Okay.
And heavily weighted towards my business. Yep. I've got an operations manager who does a lot of support elements, and what she does mostly is go out in the world. She's got in corporate. When she was in corporate, she was constantly looking for speakers to come in her place of business. And she knows what, the marketing packages, what the speaker packages that are going to catch people's eyes. She knows the language to wrap that
awesome.
gift in.
Cool.
So,
okay.
And then my wife is my business partner, and she interfaces with our marketing team. She interfaces with our publicist, and she does a lot of public facing interaction with our vendors and sponsors.
You put out the book. What are you doing right now to kind of get the book out there? How are you leveraging the book to generate new business and get greater distribution?
Yeah, again, podcasts, speaking engagements. I had a guy reach out because he finished the book, and this is the value of social media, right? Guy read my book. He saw me promoting it on LinkedIn. He read it, and after he was finished reading it, he said, "All right, I finished your book. It's time to meet." And we met and we came to terms at the table. He said, "I need more of this." And when you're finding the right people, right? I'm not a low dollar coach, but when you're finding the right people, they're completely willing to invest in themselves, right? Yeah. So I love the whale clients, not the minnow clients, right? So at the end of that conversation, and again, it was a 2-hour conversation where I just gave, tons and tons of value. So not only had he read the book, but now I just reinforced that with being at the table, and he saw the energy, saw the intensity, he saw the passion. I questioned him and challenged him. I started breaking down some of his excuses. He ultimately saw what it was going to look like to work with me, and he says, "How can we do this more?" I laid out an option, and he bid it up.
Nice. Another thing that I noticed here is you blog a lot. I mean, it seems like almost every week. I don't know if it's you or your team, but you're getting content out there a lot. This is an area that people have a challenge with. I mean, I think people understand the value of putting content out there, developing your IP and making sure that you're kind of getting it in front of the world and getting in front of your ideal clients. But a lot of people simply make the excuse that they're too busy, they can't do it, they're not good at it, whatever it is, right? There's some reason that they can't. Yet people like yourself and others are putting out content consistently. What's your secret? What's your process to getting content out consistently?
Again, I think it's really knowing yourself, right? Know thyself. Understand what your gifts and your talents are. My team, what their whole role in life is to allow me to stay in my lane. That's why I pay them, right? They allow me to stay in my lane. and my lane is speaking, and I also write content. So Michael, to answer your question, yes, I do write the blogs. I don't edit them because I can't stand editing, but I can crank out a blog post. I can crank out an article. If my operations manager said, hey, we need it, we've got an article for a magazine tomorrow, I can sit down and crank out a 1,400 word article in a matter of no time, because I've got topics that are constantly on the brain. I've got a list of topics that are already developed. So it's connecting that and making sure I know what I'm doing in certain spaces. Content delivery and content creation, those are my spaces.
At what point did you decide to start building the team? So a lot of people hesitate to bring on a team member or even to hire kind of a part-time contractor because they see it as an expense. They see it as taking money away from them. And so they decide they're going to delay doing that until, more revenue is coming in. At what point, kind of like, where were you at in terms of revenue or growth? Or like, what was the stage where you decide, yeah, you know what, I'm going to bring someone in here, so I'm not doing all this myself?
Yeah, let's just say way before I needed her and way before I could afford her.
Okay. And why? Why did you do that?
So a good friend of mine told me, who owns a very successful consulting business, he called it the universal law of the assistant. So when you hire an assistant, a couple things. First of all, you're telling yourself that you're like the real deal. Like, you're worthy of having an assistant. Now you have a business. Second of all, that person should be able to generate revenue. They're not an expense center. They're not a cost center, but they're a revenue center. Right. And third is that now you really have to start cranking up the engine. And now you really have to start making some money because you've got another mouth to feed. So the universal law of the assistant says that when we hire this person before we actually need them and before we can afford them, then it creates momentum and creates motivation, and it actually works.
Good stuff. Mike, I want to thank you so much for coming on here, sharing a bit of your story and journey, and just being so open. I really do appreciate it. I want to make sure that people can learn more about you and your work, your book, and everything else that you have going on. Where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, so if you go to MikeKitko.com, that's MikeKitko.com, my website. On my website, you can connect with my book. I've got multiple offerings: membership, a mastermind. Well, I'm launching a membership and a mastermind. Of course, there's private coaching. I have courses on my website, so there's plenty to choose from. Connect with me. There's also places to schedule time on my calendar. If you just want to sit down and jam and have a conversation, I would love to connect and meet.
There we go. We'll have all that linked up, everyone. Just head over to consultingsuccess.com, type in Mike Kitko. That's Kitkao. We'll make sure that's correct. And Mike, thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Michael, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your audience.